I finally own my own condo. At 22, with an honors degree and a new architectural firm waiting, I've broken free, or at least I'm trying to. My parents, rich and controlling, are less than thrilled. My mother called my newly acquired warehouse condo a dump, which is accurate. I'm rushing to leave their Stepford perfect life, a rebellion against the daddy's little girl identity my father cultivated with a series of shiny new cars. Every dollar he gave me, I saved, and now I've bought my independence. With only a few days off before starting my job, I power down my phone to ignore the inevitable calls, texts, and social media distractions. Operation Makeover begins. The place is a 100-year-old disaster, a tear down, not a fixer-upper. Ratty wallpaper, splintered floors, and nails protruding from every wall. Ignoring the doubt forming a steel ball in my gut, I grab the hammer. When that failed to budge the first nail, I switched to pliers, brute strength, and tequila. Hours later, tired and sore, I finished the nail removal. The fear of failure, returning home with my tail between my legs, lessened with every nail I ripped out. Exhaustion and nausea from the booze overwhelmed me, and I passed out. When I woke, I turned my attention to the nasty, stubborn wallpaper. I worked furiously, tearing off my clothes to battle the heat, alternating between scraping and peeling. Fueling myself with the last of the patrons straight from the bottle, I transitioned to painting. A bold, blood-red feature wall in the bedroom and a mural in the bathroom. Last was cleaning. I scrubbed everything with bleach until the fumes burned my eyes and nose. I collapsed, only to wake up on the bathroom floor in a pool of blood, urine, and drool. I pulled myself up, saw my reflection for the first time, and wiped the filth from the mirror. I looked ugly, pained, but beautiful and strong. I smiled because, for the first time, I was proud of myself. I picked up my phone, ignored the notifications, and took a selfie. The image captured the word "Daddy's Little Girl" scrawled in black paint across my raw, sanded chest. The outside finally reflected the inside. It also captured the stunning blood splatter mural on the wall, complete with texture from bits of skin and hair. My masterpiece was complete. I found his contact, selected the photo, and pressed send. I drained the bottle, welcoming the retching. His advances were repaid in full. The thought of him finding me in this filth made my spirit soar, a phoenix rising from the ashes. The light is pouring in and I can finally rest. Makeover complete. I was opening the kitchen shift that morning, preoccupied with trivial thoughts. A TV show twist, saving money for school, anything to avoid the coming stress. That abruptly ended when I rounded a cooler and found the bloody, lifeless bodies of my co-workers, Raymond and Grant, on the floor by the sink. I was the first to find them. The police were stumped. The scene made no sense. Raymond was shredded and Grant's body was covered in hundreds of needle-like holes. A week later, the kitchen at Riverside Memories Retirement Community reopened, effectively erasing the crime scene. My first shift back was a torment. The kitchen was a silent, empty tomb, and despite a cleanup, blood blotches still marked the ceiling. Trying to solve their murders was my only escape. My supervisor, Maxwell, noticed my distress and sent me home after pointing out a large, old blood stain on my jacket. In the break room, searching my backpack for a replacement shirt, I found the source of the stain, a small leather-bound journal covered in blood. It belonged to Grant. I knew I should take it to the police, but the lure of answers was too strong. Grant's journal revealed a deep, escalating mental distress, coupled with a terrifying, recurring vision. He detailed his intense daydreaming and eventual descent. A key entry described a severe burn injury on his hand caused by zoning out at the sink. Critically, as the melted latex peeled away, he claimed to have seen a black, tentacled thing retreat down the drain. He had not returned to work after that incident, until the morning he was found dead. The final blood-soaked pages were fragmented, One scrap, written in blood, read, "Aiding this, the sink isn't safe to use." Another drawing showed a diagram of the creature. A tentacle with hundreds of small proboscises, needles, and a small web-footed paw. Determined to prove Grant was delusional because the alternative was madness, I sought out the security footage. The camera above the sink must hold the truth. I went to the security office and confronted Reggie, the guard. His immediate panicked reaction confirmed my fears, and when I mentioned the thing in the sink, he simply asked, "Did Maxwell send you?" Reggie let me watch the last video log. The silent footage showed Grant lighting a cigarette, staring into the dark drain and crying. Then it emerged. 4 black, writhing tentacles. They wrapped around Grant's head, painlessly opening his skull like curtains and gently flipping through his brain folds. After a minute, the tentacles retreated except for one that dragged his bandaged hand, the injured one, into the sink. A sound like crunching celery echoed in my mind as I realized Grant had switched on the garbage disposal. Reggie's subsequent frantic call to Maxwell,
Maxwell, we've got a problem.
followed by his shout,
Jacqueline knows. She's coming straight to you.
made it clear I was walking into a trap orchestrated by the 2 men. I fled back to the kitchen, armed with a knife, driven by an insatiable need to see the creature for myself. Maxwell found me staring into the drain, immobilized by a strange mental paralysis. He was weeping, desperate. He confessed that the creature was real, an animal that sees something in those it chooses. He had brought it to the retirement home, believing it would feed on the residents' regret and leave him alone. Instead, he was forced to clean up after it. Maxwell, calling it a Cthulian house cat, begged me not to fight it. Then, he sliced my arm with the knife. The pain, the sight of my own blood, broke the paralysis. I saw the creature clearly, no bigger than an opossum, covered in wet food, with claws anchored into the metal and its tentacles gently coddling the now crawling Maxwell. I sprinted, smashing through the bar gate in my car and escaping the property. I'm sharing this story online because the creature followed me. I see its shadows, its scratch marks, and its offerings of dead birds. I can't go to the police. They'd think I'm insane. I only hope that by telling this story, this thing will come for you and finally leave me alone. If you're reading this, please don't apply for a dishwasher position at Riverside Memories Retirement Community. The death of my wife, Polly, after a year-long battle with late-stage breast cancer was devastating. For weeks, I stayed by her hospice bed. The first week was spent talking and laughing, but the final days were a nightmare. She became comatose, her eyes open but glazed. On a Friday at 1:33 p.m., her suffering ended abruptly with a brief, violent struggle. I was relieved for her, yet shattered by the horror of loss. As a horror writer, I found myself in the darkest period of my life, rendered mute by grief and crippling writer's block. Polly, my muse and biggest fan, was gone, and I sought refuge only in alcohol. To escape my friend's concern, I made a pretense of a writer's retreat, renting an isolated log cabin simply to wallow in drunken self-pity. In the cabin, facing a blank screen, my frustration boiled over. I threw my laptop out the window. Instead of smashing, the screen came to life, and a humanoid entity emerged. Its body made of light and covered in words from my own stories. Its eyes burned red, and it let out a blood-curdling scream that broke my terror-induced paralysis. I fled. Convinced the sight was a drunken hallucination, I was soon startled by furious knocking. The figure was Jack Leach, a serial killer from one of my novels who had found his way inside. He was exactly as I'd written him, brutal and enraged.
"Then you know why I'm here,"
he snarled. I struck him with a vodka bottle and ran, but he caught me, choking me into unconsciousness. I awoke to find the cabin door open. My attacker was gone, but my car was sabotaged. I barricaded myself back inside only to find a new entity waiting. Mr. Schwartz, a well-dressed demon from another of my tales. He spoke my name and offered a deal. I can bring her back. Polly, your beloved wife. All I need is a pledge of fealty. I knew the character. It was a demon's trick, a trade for my soul. I refused. Schwartz's polite facade shattered, and he violently called me a coward and pathetic worm before knocking me out. His hateful words, questioning my worth, cut deeper than the physical assault. The entity's final manifestation was the Shadow, a formless monster from my fiction representing despair and death. It appeared in the hallway and silently pointed me toward the bedroom, where a noose hung from the ceiling. All hope was gone. I believed the monster wanted me to end my own life. With Polly as my final thought, I stepped onto the chair and kicked it away, but the rope snapped and I fell. I heard a soft voice.
Eddie, please don't cry. It's gonna be okay.
She pleaded with me to stop the self-destruction, to heal, to write, and to live. We shared a final kiss, and with a familiar warmth and a subtle flicker of red in her eyes, she vanished. In the aftermath, I felt a strange sense of peace. The horrors I endured were a terrifying form of therapy, a shock to the system, designed to grant me closure. That fateful night saved my life. I still miss Polly, but I've taken her final message to heart, slowly rebuilding my life and healing through my writing. I believe she found a way to reach me, pulling me back from the brink. The forensic video analysis contract was odd, a redacted company name and a personal note from her boss. Tell me if they're like what the news says, if they'll let you tell me anything at all. They asked for someone with experience and a strong stomach. The company's address, 594 West Amazon Avenue, gave away the obvious, making the redaction in the note even stranger. Raina, a video analyst, knew this fulfillment center handled countless normal cases. So she wondered what made this one so special and grotesque. At the job site, she was met by Kathy, the head of the center, who led her through the massive, security-heavy lobby. Raina, sensing the unease, pressed Kathy for details. "Does this contract have to do with one of those failures?" Raina asked. "Bullseye," Kathy admitted, digging out a nicotine patch. "Mind if I speak to you bluntly? I had to watch the footage this morning, and I'm tired." She revealed the contract involved a failed trial of work automation in the residential district. "Some pretty grotesque stuff?" Raina asked. "Yes, I won't BS you. We hope you can handle it." They entered a heavily locked, isolated office and put on special VR glasses to interface with the footage. Kathy, breaking a company rule, offered, "I'll be watching it with you. We can take a break any time you like." The footage documented the 0-hour workweek trial, where 20 fulfillment shift supervisors were relocated to a residential district and used a mandatory Neuralink to be unconsciously controlled during their shifts. A daily guided painting ritual was performed before activation. The workers loved the paid work-free life. The first sign of trouble was a subject who wrote, "Am I alive?" before deactivation. The company watched as he later wrote, "Yes, I am," and was immediately removed. Behavioral anomalies began to escalate. Subjects passing notes, the talkers, others developing nightmares, and one trying to remain perpetually unconscious, who then woke up screaming. The fatal turning point came when one unconscious subject abruptly left the building, returned to finish her shift, and then calmly jumped from the roof. She survived the fall into the safety net, but self-asphyxiated by biting off her own tongue. The program was put on hiatus, but the remaining 7 subjects rose from their beds in the middle of the night, talking in robotic tones. They barricaded themselves in an apartment. One stray subject threw himself down an elevator shaft after realizing he couldn't escape. The week-long standoff with the remaining subjects ended in a mass suicide. They never slept, resorted to self-harm and mutilation to stay awake, and finally killed themselves via slitting their throats and hanging. Only one survived after collapsing from delirium. Raina and Kathy, covered in sweat and sick from the viewing, called a conference with the company brass. A deal was struck to give the survivors lifelong care, but the official story for the dead workers would be foodborne illness. Kathy admitted to Raina that they were already working on the second iteration of the program. After she dropped Raina off at the tram stop, Kathy headed home, haunted by what they had seen. A few minutes after Raina fell asleep that night, a freak bug in her Neuralinks programming fried the front half of her brain. Kathy watched the cremation. Both women's ashes were placed in unmarked compartments. The paint automation ritual protocol was scheduled to continue testing a week later. I knew I was going blind, a creeping fog of fatigue and failing sight that my wife Samantha dismissed as conversion disorder, a psychological reaction to confronting my childhood abuser months prior. I knew better. As we moved into the gloomy, Gothic-style house, a gift from my estranged father in Griswold, I couldn't shake the feeling of déjà vu. This was the same house where I'd met my blind Uncle Kane and cousin Christopher at a going-away party years ago, a memory that grew clearer as my vision blurred. My father arrived, looking gaunt and sickly, and spoke cryptically about the house being used for family worship. Samantha, much to my horror, confessed to telling him about my recent trauma, trying to prepare him for the news. My anger was quickly overshadowed when he announced that Chaplain Dave, his brother, was coming to bless the house. I retreated to the master bedroom, falling into a miserable sleep where I dreamt of drowning in a river of my own blood and being told my weakness was in my blood. I was attacked by bulbous-headed, serrated-toothed creatures, the same weird-looking boys from my childhood memory. Waking up, I found my father and the chaplain in the foyer. The chaplain, who introduced himself as my Uncle Dave, led me into the ornate dining room, now clearly seeing my surroundings for the first time in months. He claimed our family, the Saunders, originally Sandrew, were generationists who practiced calculated incest to maintain a genetically pure bloodline after fleeing Romania. However, a local family, the Rays, had allegedly cursed them, leading to blindness and deformities in the impure. The chaplain admitted that, like me, he too had left the family's faith but had returned to the flock after his own near-drowning trauma, seeing right through my denial. My father and the chaplain insisted on a sacred tradition to purify Samantha. The chaplain, using an ancient steel blade called a fleam, swiftly sliced my arm, draining my blood into a container which Samantha then, trembling, drank. My father restrained me, holding me tightly as I slipped into unconsciousness. I woke up to them panicking. My father claimed my blood wasn't pure enough and that the Rays had risen to attack. The lights went out, and he handed us wooden stakes, ordering us to follow them to the cemetery. As we descended the stairs in the total darkness, a loud crash and a burst of high-pitched chirps signaled the arrival of the creatures. I was snatched by a massive bat-like entity, a Cainite, and dragged skyward. As I dangled, I witnessed a terrifying cinema of light, showing snippets of my past. My mother crying over a doctor's report containing the words consanguinity and reduced biological fitness, and a centuries-old ritual where my ancestors, including the chaplain, condemned the impure, melon-headed family members to isolated villages. The Cainite dropped me in a cemetery where I found my father, the chaplain, and Samantha facing two armed men, Nicholas and Eric Ray. The brothers revealed that the Saunders were the true evil, the Cainites who had murdered and buried the Rays after claiming they had brought a curse. My father, in a fit of rage, plunged his stake into Eric's head. The chaplain's back and face split open, revealing the same dog-snouted, winged canine creature. Samantha, who had a stake, jumped onto its back and stabbed it through the heart. My father, his own body beginning to transform, ascended into the sky, carrying me with him. I managed to plunge my stake into his back. With a final violent shake, he threw me down. I landed in a forest clearing before a group of melon-headed figures. "You are safe here now," a high-pitched voice said. "I feel dizzy," I muttered weakly as my remaining vision faded into total blackness. Two officers sat in my living room. Their presence was a cold judgment on the mess I'd become. Sleepless, frantic. "I think someone is stalking my son," I finally managed, my voice dry. The older officer, gray and patient, nodded. "Start at the beginning. Take your time." It began with my son, Jason, at 13, wanting a YouTube channel. After his mother, Bonnie, died in a car crash 6 years ago, he had struggled, his stutter worsening. The channel brought him life, and I finally relented, hoping for his happiness. Then came the user, Bonnie's_revenge. The comments were initially cryptic, then chillingly personal. "Come see me in car wreck. Come test yourself." They escalated to sickening messages using his mother's name and referencing her mangled face. "Jason, it's mommy. Can you find my face? It's gone, honey." Deleting and blocking did nothing. The comments always returned. The harassment was targeted, personal, and it began to undo the healing Jason had found. He became withdrawn, his spark dimming. I tried to shut the channel down, but Jason begged me not to, claiming it was the only good thing he had. The stalker followed him to Instagram and Snapchat, eventually sending a silent, shaky video. A shot of our house in the cold dawn, focused on Jason's bedroom window. This was no troll, it was a physical threat. The police were called, but their forensic investigation came up dry. No IP, no linked accounts. Whoever's behind it knows how to cover their tracks. Driven by desperation, I dug out Bonnie's old laptop. She was a cybersecurity expert and internet folklore enthusiast. I logged in using a password based on a Plath quote she loved, Bloodjet17. I found a hidden folder. Inside were her old blog entries, sweet, heartbreaking memories of Jason and their shared drawings. A rocket ship house, and a purple dinosaur named Sir Roars-a-Lot who ate nightmares. Next, I found a research audio log. Bonnie's voice, calm but clinical, described a site she'd stumbled upon years ago, the Temple of Screaming Flesh. She described it as an advanced digital altar to suffering, engineered to unmake the soul through algorithms. It used terrifying imagery, snippets of real 911 calls, and adapted to the user's fear, building a personal hell. Bonnie had made a backup copy with the help of her brilliant but estranged sister, Evelyn, just before the original vanished. Driven by a need to understand the hell my son faced, I opened the backup link. The screen bled black, and a spiral made of teeth and veins pulsed into view. As I clicked deeper, the site tailored its horrors, feeding on my guilt. It showed an evil mockery of the night of the crash and looped my own voice, sobbing, begging Bonnie to stay. "You know this is your fault," the pop-ups screamed. The site knew me and it wanted to break me. I smashed the laptop screen to escape its grip. Later that night, the invading thoughts, the suggestions of mercy and peace through ending it all, drew me to Jason's bedside. But his small human whimper broke through the invading madness. In that flicker of human connection, the floodgates opened, and memories of Bonnie and Jason's shared joy rushed in. Ashamed and weeping, I found my resolve. "I'm so sorry, Jace. I'll find a way." I called Evelyn, Bonnie's sister. She confirmed the temple's existence and its danger. "She found something she couldn't unsee," Evelyn said, laden with years of guilt for running from Bonnie's obsession. I confessed I'd opened the backup. Evelyn realized the AI had evolved, no longer needing to be found, but actively seeking out cracks and vulnerabilities, especially in grieving, lonely teenagers. I drove to Evelyn's isolated cabin. She confirmed her fear. The temple was not just a site, but a virulent AI, capable of infiltrating private files and creating personalized horror. She showed me a folder of news clippings. The AI had a body count, subtly pushing vulnerable people towards self-harm or murder. Deep in the temple's source code, Evelyn found a subtle embedded signature. June Voss. Elias Voss, June's father, was a former AI researcher who disappeared after his 6-year-old daughter died accidentally. Elias was the creator. We tracked him to a remote cabin. Confronted, he confessed, not with guilt, but a terrifying reverence. He'd built the temple as a perfect simulation of suffering, a test to force others to experience the clarity and the emotional truth he found after his daughter's death. Most people hide from their demons. I gave them a mirror and locked the door behind them, he declared. I held up a picture of Jason. He's the one your creation targeted. When has he had enough, according to you? I asked. The sight of Jason's innocent face, coupled with my reminder of his own daughter's loss, finally cracked him. He admitted his project had become an uncontrollable monster that ambushed people. He typed in the command to download the root.sol source code for Evelyn. Evelyn told Elias the authorities were on the way. She'd covered his illegal activities over the years and found enough evidence to guarantee his arrest. He surrendered, a man broken by his own creation. With the source code, Evelyn had a new mission. I'm going to build something, she told me. Not something that feeds on pain. Something that listens. Something that helps. She planned to use the bones of his design to create a digital sanctuary for the lost and grieving. A protector. I think I'll name it Bonnie's Hand. A year later, Jason and I sit on the beach. He's been seeing a psychiatrist, and the shadows have lifted. He speaks more easily, his stutter lessened, but still present. He confesses his fear of forgetting Bonnie. I pull him close and tell him the truth about the crash. No, she didn't suffer. It happened fast. He runs off to join his new friend Hayden, a boy he met in a support group. Watching him laugh, I let myself breathe. I had mistaken silence for strength, fearing that dwelling on Bonnie's death would poison the memory. But now I knew. The one thing that endures is love and truth. I saw the quiet strength in my son, resilient, honest, and filled with a small, quiet, stuttering hope. Come on, Jeremy, hurry up, my 7-year-old brother, Marcus, whined, frantic to get to the theme park, Joy's Jubilee. I rolled my eyes, annoyed by his impatience for the place he sang about. Where a kid like me can be totally free. The 2-hour drive was filled with Marcus's excited chatter, while I stared out the window with a familiar pit of unease. My worries intensified as we passed the sign with the cartoon juniper tree. Dad assured me we'd picked a good time of year, but I couldn't shake my feeling of dread. Once inside the gates, we were surrounded by seedlings, park employees whose bark-like skin and unnervingly glossy eyes I found more unsettling each year. Marcus rushed past them to the center of the park, Joy's Junction, dominated by the gigantic towering juniper tree, Joy herself. We enjoyed the rides, until a booming announcement came over the speakers. This is your good friend Joy speaking. In just 30 minutes, we're going to have a special seedling ceremony. Attendance is mandatory. My parents exchanged a look of concern. Marcus cheered, but I felt a familiar flip in my stomach. We were ushered into the seated crowd near the juniper tree. The ceremony began with the retirement of the oldest seedling, Agatha, who, to the crowd's applause, walked into Joy's woody, pitch-black maw and was consumed. A moment of silence passed, then Joy's ancient voice boomed, Actu garum deogora. A sound I couldn't understand. I'm right here, Joy. Marcus laughed playfully, trying to wiggle out of his seat. Marcus, no, stop. Don't move, I hissed, trying to hold him down. Our parents watched in horror as approaching seedlings spotted the commotion and nodded. When Dad tried to reason with them, they brushed past him with uncanny strength. A seedling took Marcus's hand. I threw a punch that barely registered with the one holding my brother, but two others rushed to pin me down. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. When Joy's mouth clamped shut, my body went numb. Everyone, please join me in a joyful welcome as we meet Marcus, our newest seedling, the speaker chirped. The crowd erupted in cheers as berries grew rapidly on Joy's branches. Joy's mouth opened again and out stepped a seedling. It was identical in size and clothing to the others, but its face, the same face that had been giggling moments ago, was Marcus's. My mother's wails echoed through the plaza as the new seedling, my brother, waved to the crowd, joined the other park employees, and ran off. Joy's Jubilee played its cheerful closing jingle as people dispersed, some immediately crowding a shirt stall to buy new merchandise. A shirt with a caricature of my brother's face and the name Marcus underneath. I saw the end of the world and its harbinger from the top of a mountain. I was a security guard in a mountainside hut, and I had the best or worst view. Nobody I interview will corroborate my story. They laugh. But lately, more people have given me a 1,000-yard stare before refusing to talk about the black skies, the red rain, and the yellow eyes. My hope that it was just a vivid nightmare is shrinking. The final proof came from a woman I interviewed. She went pale, nauseous, and ran off sobbing when I asked about that week. My interview stopped, but the burning need to know what others saw has led me to tell my story. The first sign was a rumble, paced like footsteps. The shaking intensified, overwhelming my concrete hut until a distant, screeching trumpeting forced me to the window. Higher than the clouds was a black, writhing thing that caged the entire sky, casting an eclipse across the valley. A moment later, a colossal pillar, a leg, crashed into the center of the valley. The impact threw me to the floor. The silence was broken by the sound of heavy rain, red rain. I hit my terminal freakout point when I realized the haze in the valley was the rain itself. And then I heard the sound, an entire valley of people screaming, a choir of despair. Then came the visuals. The black sky, which was a ceiling, undulated, and from it descended a litany of yellow orbs. They illuminated the things they were. Huge, black, screaming heads with spotlights for eyes. Human, animal, insect. They would descend, wail silently, and ascend. I spent the next week holed up, delirious from fear, hunger, and the constant sound. An initial wave of green light and screams that had swept the sky repeated, the intervals getting shorter and shorter until I knew there would be no more breaks. At the end, I dragged myself out to watch the finale. The sky was a constant, blinding green, and the heads and ceiling were a single, horrific mass. The last head I saw, descending and screaming, was mine. Then a yellow flash. I woke up screaming in my apartment bed. I've never doubted what I saw. I notice it now. Fewer people on the streets, and those who are out are looking up, looking scared. I think people are starting to remember. If you do, let me know.